All right, guys. Today we're going to go over how to read an Inbody scan from an Inbody 270, which is what we have here at the gym. So we've got your name, height, age, gender, the date, and then on this first box, we've got the body composition analysis. So here we're going to see the total amount of body water. Um, Generally, we want to see this at about 60% of the person's total body weight. So you can see here on this sample scan, her total body water is at 60 pounds of her total weight, which is 130.3 pounds. So that's a little bit less than half. So that's not ideal in this example. But generally, you'll see that the more muscle mass someone has, the higher their total body water will be. And then the less muscle mass and the more body fat someone has, the lower their total body water will be. And that's because the more muscle mass you have, the more water weight you will maintain and retain due to that muscle mass. So muscle holds on to water more than fat does. So the best time to do an in-body scan in a perfect world would be in the mornings before you've eaten, after you've used the bathroom at a consistent time. If that's not possible, then you want to make sure that when you do your Inbody, it's at a consistent time every time you do it, whether that's weekly or monthly. So for example, if I always do an Inbody at 5 p.m., I should keep that trend just for a consistent data set. Below total body water, which should be 60% of your body weight in pounds, we're going to look at dry lean mass. So dry lean mass is going to be essentially all the tissue in your body that's not water or fat. So think about bones, organs, etc. This will be a correlate to seeing an improvement in skeletal muscle mass. And if we're tracking muscle mass gains, we want to also watch dry lean mass and look for that to trend in the same direction. Just because when you have muscle mass, sometimes you'll see fluctuations here based on your hydration. Again, because your muscle mass holds onto water. So if you see big fluctuations in the muscle mass when you do an in-body scan, that could be from water weight. So you want to make sure we're also watching dry lean mass, which will be everything other than fat, water, and muscle. So it could be bones, organs, etc. Below that, we're going to have body fat mass in pounds, which is pretty self-explanatory. You've got just the total pounds of body fat. So the two primary tissues that we're looking at for an in-body scan is going to be body fat and muscle mass. And then below that, you get your sum of all these numbers, which will be your total weight. Now, below that in the next box, we have a muscle fat analysis. So you've got your total weight, same as here. You get your skeletal muscle mass, and then you have your body fat. Now, you see these arrows here on this graph. Essentially, the downward pointing arrow is going to be below normal based on their averages for people that are this age, height, and gender and weight. And then you're going to have the little dash here. That's going to be normal, average, the appropriate range, you could say. And then over here to the right, we have the upward pointing arrow. That's going to be above average, above normal. I might call it ideal. So typically what you see on an in-body is one of three shapes. You're going to see a C shape. That's when the weight is high, the muscle mass is relatively low, and the body fat is relatively high, and it makes this sort of C shape. Another shape you'll see is an I, and that's when these three lines are stacked. So the weight would be here, the muscle mass would be somewhere around here, and the body fat would be around here. Typically, when you see that, they're all falling in the normal or the average range. And then for most people, what they're striving towards is what we would identify as a D shape. So you're going to have the weight over here in some range here. You're going to have the muscle mass above average or above normal, and then body fat mass trending down towards average or below average. And for most people, they'd want to get that body fat below average to some extent. to have a body composition that they want to see in the mirror. So this is helpful because it gives us focus points and goals. So for example, for this person, our goals would be to drive the muscle mass to the right and drive the body fat to the left. What the weight does is a little bit less important to me because that's going to be a natural byproduct of focusing on muscle mass and body fat and a reflection of percent body fat. So this woman might stay at 125, but she may gain 10 pounds of muscle mass and lose 15 pounds of body fat, and she'll be a much healthier, happier woman, even though she's only lost 5 pounds. So below that, we've got this box here, which is the obesity analysis, and this is a comparison of BMI and percent body fat. So body mass index is a pretty standard analysis that you see in most doctors' offices, most physicians will use. And this is just comparing your height to weight ratio. And it's what's been used as the standard for a long time. It can be accurate, but generally we see it not be so great. And this is a good example here. You've got this Jane Doe whose BMI is 24, and that puts her in the healthy normal range based on this data set. But you look at her percent body fat, and she's actually at 37.5% body fat, which is technically obese. And that's not healthy. That's not a good place to be. And that's why we do focus more on percent body fat, and we rarely, if ever, look at BMI as a useful objective data point. This would improve by improving and increasing muscle mass and decreasing body fat. If we did those two things, we would see this percent body fat number go down. Below the obesity analysis, we have the segmental lean analysis, which is a breakdown of her muscle mass from her left arm to her right arm to her trunk, so her abdomen, and then her left and right leg. This is useful, but for a couple reasons. It shows us the biggest opportunity for improvement. And what I mean by that is you want these percentages to be at 100% or higher. So we see that she has some opportunities to improve her upper body strength and her trunk strength and get that close to 100%. But the biggest opportunity is for her to build up the percentages in her lower body. So doing focusing on lower body exercises to build that muscle mass, getting it close to 100%. And as that improved, because there's a bigger opportunity for improvement there, we would see her muscle mass increase, which would affect her base metabolic rate and improve her total body water because she has more muscle mass to retain water. And that would all inherently lower her percent body fat. This can also be a useful tool to track and avoid injuries and make sure that you don't have large unilateral imbalances. So what I mean by that is if someone has, say, substantially more muscle mass in one leg versus the other, or one arm versus the other, that will forecast usually some kind of unilateral injury. But if you do bilateral movements, so meaning like barbell exercises where you're loading the body fully with weight, evenly distributed, but you have an uneven distribution of muscle mass, that will usually cause an injury at some point down the road. And we can prescribe and recommend single leg or single arm strength work with dumbbells or kettlebells, or even bodyweight movements to build strength and find more balance. Below the segments lean analysis, we have her body composition history, which is essentially a graph showing her progress based on her previous Inbody scans. So if we look down here, we'll see that she's actually making good progress, which is good to see. We've got the weight trending down. So she's lost a total of 13.6 pounds since her first Inbody on October 10th. And now we're looking at May 4th for the following year. So she's lost about 13 pounds, which is great. She's lost a total of almost 4% body fat, so just shy of 4% body fat, which is also good to see. One thing that I would be concerned about is seeing this trend of muscle mass also declining. It's not completely unusual or totally unusual to see muscle mass decline with weight loss because the person's in a caloric deficit, But what we can do to mitigate this is prioritize protein intake and strength training to avoid too much catabolism and muscle loss, which will slow down the improvements that she wants to see in her percent body fat, and could also have a negative effect on her body composition and her base metabolic rate. So it's a useful metric to be able to track. But overall, she's seeing good progress. We just want to try to get that muscle mass trending in the other direction because we do want to see the muscle climb up above this average range. If we go back up to the top and look over to the right, there are some simple objective goals that are easy to look at and easy to use to prescribe. What we see here is that the Inbody scan is prescribing some like just objective goals based on its data set. So for her to get into the normal healthy range, it's suggesting she loses 22 pounds of body fat, which would bring her down to about 26 pounds of body fat and put her back in this like healthy range here. And it's also suggesting that she gains about 8.5 pounds of muscle mass, pushing her up towards 51 pounds of muscle, which would again put her up in that top end of the healthy average or above average. That's going to be a useful tool to just identify, okay, here's where we should focus. These are objective goals that we can shoot for and aspire towards. Below that, we're going to see her total lean body mass, which, like I said before, is a combination of her skeletal muscle mass and her dry lean mass, and basically all of the tissue that's not body fat or water. And then below that is going to be her basal metabolic rate. So that's going to be a general and a rough estimate of metabolism based on her lean body mass. So it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it is going to be a useful starting point if we want to look at nutrition baselines or recommendations if we're going to track calories. And that can and will go up as she gains muscle mass, as you've heard me say before. And below there, we have just some definitions and explanations of some of the data. And that is how you read an Inbody scan. So if you want to get an Inbody scan here at the gym, feel free to click the link below and schedule one. And we can sit down and look at what you're made of. And if not, that's okay too. But this is a helpful tool to measure objective body composition changes and set goals. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.